So my guest today is Dr. Gilda, or to be more precise, Dr. Gilda Carle. Dr. Gilda Carle is the media's go-to relationship strategist and media coach serving clients worldwide. She was the host of Fox's Dr. Gilda TV show pilot, MTV's Love Doc, and TV shows on Trinity Broadcasting Network. She debated with lawyers on Court TV. She wrote the 30-second therapist column for the Today Show, the Ask Dr. Gilda column for Match.com, and she was the therapist in HBO's Emmy Award winner Telling Nicholas, featured on Oprah. Her nonprofit Country Courses empowers homeless female veterans through the use of country music. She's a brand spokesperson, keynote speaker, professor emerita of business, and author of 18 books. So I have a very impressive guest, as usual. I'm very proud of my guest. So welcome, Dr. Gilda.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here and talking to you and everybody.
Yes.
Hi.
Sorry?
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much. Yes, we'll have some guests online, and those who are online will be able to join the conversation. So guys, if you have a question today for my guest, Dr. Gilda, you can leave it in Q&A section. And of course, we'll be also publishing this interview later. So I want to ask, the topic of our conversation is from a boardroom to bedroom, and your education is in business, and you're talking essentially about relationships. Love and relationships. So how did you do your transition from boardroom to bedroom? But I know it's in a different context right now.
It's not really a transition because I have always been a college and graduate school professor, and I have always also opened up the space about relationships. And in corporations, I go into companies, they hire me to talk about relationship for the corporations only. I'm talking now. They ask me to talk about relationships as they relate to their bottom line. When a company typically calls me in, it's because the bottom line has some issues and they don't understand what to do. Usually they have already spoken to other consultants who have said, well, business-wise, you have to do A and B and C, and they go through the whole list and they still have the problems with the bottom line. So then they call in a relationship strategist, me, and suddenly I'm looking at things from a different perspective. Because of my background, I'm always talking about the interpersonal relationships that people are having. There's a lot of conflict, a lot of stress, a lot of things going on today in the world that are affecting us. Now, let's go forward to what we have seen occur in recent times with the pandemic. The pandemic showed us that everybody, let me turn this off because here we are doing this from a situation that doesn't involve a professional studio. So we're dealing with people and all kinds of things going on. And this is what I'm talking about. In the, what we have learned from seeing from the pandemic was that all of a sudden, people's personal lives and their professional lives came together. We are on Zoom right now, but when people started with during the pandemic, they found themselves under one roof with their families, with their children, with their dogs barking, with people arguing in the background, with sirens going off, et cetera, et cetera. And this was the first time actually that we recognized that we are whole people. We are not segmented people as we theoretically began. Because when I was starting in my business practice, we never talked about personal things. And now we can't help but talk about personal things because they are part and parcel of who we are. And so I had to start rearranging all the training that I was doing in corporate America. In the past, I was always invited into companies to train them in leadership skills. And the leadership skills evolved into presentation skills because people were communicating blah, 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 but they were missing each other. They weren't hearing each other really speak about what the things were that they were meaning to speak about. And so I started to transition into media more because I was on television doing relationship things. It was very simple for me to say, I see the problem here. We are having interpersonal communications issues, and we have to join together in a better way. When the bottom line starts to falter anywhere, then we have to start to look at other things. And the traditional models involved more of the same theories, more of the same academic things that I teach in my MBA courses to students. That was not the answer, because there's another part to who we are. There's that personal part. And so I recognized I am going to have to focus more and more on people's media presence. I call it media presence, but it's the way you project yourself when you are speaking. So does that kind of answer that first question?
It does. It definitely does. And of course, it raises other questions. So I guess the question that I have is, so we've run business for now 19 or 20 years. God, I can't even remember. But of course, when I started my career, that was a long time ago here in the government, it was a different era. It was a different time, end of the 20th century. So obviously, it is clear nowadays that there is more humanity at workplace. Like, we are more human. We recognize that we're human. But still, even with that said, if I think of some of the relatively recent incidents when we still lived in the office or worked in the office, the relationships between people were always considered, while we recognize that we're humans, but they were always considered like something unprofessional or something which doesn't belong to work, or some burden to deal with. Yet relationships do happen at work, and I understand we're not talking just about love relationships, we're talking about relationships in general. So is really a relationship something we need to deal with when it becomes painful, or is it something that we and right now I'm talking as a co-founder, as a business owner, something we have to actually create maybe proactively or think about it in advance? I know we're not in the office right now, but still, I guess this question will become important again sooner or later.
No, it is important throughout. No matter what we do, the way we communicate to other people and the way they hear us and interpret what we have to say is extremely important, because that's the channel that we deliver what we have to say. Even in, when we talk about the MBA courses, and by the way, somebody asked, what does MBA mean? Because you're all over the world. That's a master's in business administration. And so I hope I have clarified that for you who have asked. But when we talk about those things, we, as you had said, we traditionally never discussed, well, how are you feeling today? What's going on in your house today? Why are you are so tense? Why are you feeling like nothing is going right? What happened? And we never spoke about that in office parlance. We never talked about that at all. And now suddenly, thanks to the pandemic, actually, we don't have a choice. When the child in the background is screaming and mommy, and that's a whole other story about women having to be the overseers of who's at home and the interpersonal relationships that she has to manage. When the child is screaming, we have to identify, this is an issue right now for me to get my message across. And if my mind is thinking about my child in the other room, I am going to have to let people know. And I always tell my clients, let somebody know, let your audience know that this is happening right now. I have to attend to it. I'll be right back.
But is this the responsibility of every single person, or is it in any way a responsibility of a business owner or a manager or a CEO? Who has to worry about that?
Well, that's a very important question, because the leaders have to understand that what somebody is feeling in their heart, what somebody is having as a familial problem at home, has to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. The person at home has to feel comfortable enough without feeling that she's going to have her head cut off if she says to her boss, I am having this issue right now, and I have identified it. I know what I have to do, and I need some time to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a combined effort on the part of the person who traditionally never wanted to talk about, oh, I really have a home life, versus the person at work who has things to do and many, many tasks to accomplish. But in an effort to accomplish these, we have to figure out who is the person. And it always starts with, who am I? Mm-hmm. And I have to identify, that's my business. That's my job, to identify who I am, and also to identify what I need mm-hmm. at the moment.
So, of course, over the past few years, we've seen some very cute examples of private life butting into, let's say, TV appearances and all sorts of blunders. Yes. Do you think we are a little more at ease with that? Because before the pandemic, I've always had a very weird habit of making inappropriate or strange jokes at meetings just to ease the tension. And some people didn't get it; other people actually appreciated it. So do you think we're going to be more relaxed when we get back to the offices? Because we are going to get back to the offices. I'm sure of that.
Well, I'm not, okay, a couple of questions here. Are we going to be more at ease? God, I hope so. Because, seriously, because we are whole people. We can't segment half our life as mother, or we're talking about women right now, but it's the same as for daddies, mother or father versus employee that has to respond to an employer. We are whole people, and I hope to God that this has at least, there's some silver lining in this, that has at least shown us that we don't have to be so uptight and so strict about the way we come across. We can be real. You know, there's a reason that reality television has taken off. Because people were sick of seeing all the make-believe stuff that they saw on camera, and they were sick of thinking that, well, this is reality, when it wasn't. And even though reality television isn't reality television because it's so highly edited and scripted sometimes, we like to think that this is more realistic. So yes, I think there's going to be a loosening up. However, I also think that all companies are not going back to their offices, not 100%.
Yes,
some are, but we're talking about the hybrid as well. And people are starting to learn how to identify things that they need to get across through these mechanisms, as well as through interpersonal, in-person mechanisms. So that's why I call my program Boardroom to Bedroom, because every part of us is now on display. Matter of fact, I was feeling so, since I teach business courses, I was feeling so bad for the people who were suddenly thrown on air and were told, oh, now you're a TV star. They did not want to be famous. They did not want to be on air. And yet, this is how we are talking to people. And the burnout has been so tremendous. It got to the point that I was so sad for so many of these people. How I spent my pandemic was writing a brand new book called Amplify Your Media Presence, Amplify Your Brand. Because first of all, many of these employees were never taught, A, we are our own brand. B, if we don't project it, who is going to? And C, suddenly in our world, and this is worldwide, we saw people's promotions and salaries dependent upon how they came across. Bottom line, that was our new bottom line. And so I collected all the notes I had because I have been dealing online with my clients from around the world. And I took my notes, I took my notes from my courses in my MBA programs because I was teaching these same skills in business, in the Masters of Business Administration. And I took all my television experience, and I've had vast amount of television experience talking about relationships. And I suddenly combined the two to create my own technological new program that involved edutainment. Now, I coined that term because it's educational. Nobody wants to speak to anybody or hear from anybody unless they know what's in it for me. I call that WIFM, W-I-I-F-M. What's in it for me? Will I grow as a result from hearing what you have to say? If I don't think there's anything that I'm going to get out of this situation, I'm not going to bother listening. And we already know that people's listening has gone all the way down. Most people listen like a windshield wiper. It's over. And here are some interesting facts I say in my book. That the book, somebody asked me to repeat what the name of it was. Amplify your media presence, amplify your brand. And one of the things, and I talk about in the book, how we are such horrible listeners. And this is very sad. You have 3 seconds to grab somebody's attention, and 5 seconds to hold their attention. And if you're lucky, that person will attend to you for about 30 seconds, which is the average television commercial or radio commercial, 30 seconds. So I show people how to circumvent that so we're heard. If we're not heard, there's no point in even communicating.
So does that mean we have to learn to actually communicate in this bite-size format, or it's more about grabbing attention, but we can keep communicating as we used to in terms of depth and length?
That's a brilliant question. Yes and no. Yes, you have to know how to communicate in bite-sized formats. But in addition to that, if you keep your people listening to you, you also have to know how to style flex, as I call it, how to go from the bite-sized format to more extensive information. And you can see this by watching them carefully. I'm looking at you very carefully, Christina, and I see you are attending to what I'm saying. Your head is nodding and all of that. We can also do this on what I now call these Hollywood squares kind of setups where you see everybody in a row in a big meeting and we all are like postage size. You have to look for people's eyes, look for people's facial expressions and see if they're with you. If they are not, you have to exit your original plan and do something entirely different. Now, I've had to learn how to do this, of course, when I'm in front of a live audience. Some people are snoozing off. Well, never for my presentations. But we could see some people snoozing off. We could see some people looking at their cell phones. We can see some people talking to somebody next to them. And so what we must do as presenters in front of a large audience is to make sure that you grab their attention again. Remember, you only have 3 seconds to grab it, 5 seconds to hold that attention. So you have to do all of this while you're delivering your content. Not so easy. I'm asking you to walk and chew gum at the same time. A lot of people haven't been trained in that, but we have to understand that everybody out there who is on TV has had media training. And I always did this for executives around the world. And now I'm doing it, of course, online. And it's proven very, very helpful, because without this, you're just one of the people out there who thinks they're talking, and to the audience, it's going in one ear, out the other.
But as you mentioned, sometimes the faces are super tiny. And in the past 2 years, I've had these situations where I have to talk into the blank screen. Partially, sometimes it's the technical setup. Sometimes people just refuse to switch on their cameras. Is there any advice how to go about when you don't get the feedback? Because I remember when I was speaking on actual stage, it was so helpful to have people in front of you, because you could actually get the feedback.
And you know what? I miss that terribly. And you are probably the first person, or all of these people who are listening now, to find out that I am now in development for a TV show of my own right now, live audience. So we're doing that right now. And, you know, it'll take a while until we actually have the development that's really humming along. But I miss that so much. I want to touch people. I want to hear that they have this question or that question. And I want to be able to know that if I'm not hitting my mark, that I can style flex into another means to indeed hit that mark. You see, this is why I call it an edutainment. We are educating somebody, we are training them, and it's entertainment too. I'm sorry, everybody. We have all, thanks to the pandemic, we have all recognized that we have to become edu-trainers and entertainers all combined, because we have got to hold people's interest. Otherwise, why are we communicating?
So how do you hold that interest if you don't see anyone? Do you put like your cat or a dog in front of you and talk to that?
Well, if they hear the cat or the dog, that might be entertaining someone. You know, it's very interesting. You have to know where they're coming from. For example, here we are on chat. Some people have asked some questions. I have identified the questions. I have tried to answer some of them while they're happening. I love that. That's fabulous. Now, traditionally, we were told, never, never, never interrupt your presentation. Memorize your presentation. Deliver your presentation. And who cares who's listening? Well, I have news for you. And I say this in my book again and again and again. It is not about you. If a client comes to me and says, oh, I'm so nervous. Well, you can be nervous all you want. That is telling me something that's very valuable. You're telling me that you're nervous because you're worried about you. And you have forgotten this major point. What's in it for me is the question that everybody out there is asking. And if I don't see that you are giving value to make my life better, I am out. Even if I am physically there, physically. Mentally, my mind is wandering again, and people's minds wander constantly. We don't recognize this. We have forgotten that people don't listen like, oh, I want to hear this for the next hour. They drop in and out and in and out. And one of the things in my book is that I was very careful to set up an audience analysis sheet to find out who we're talking to. Who is the audience? Where are they from? What are their pain points? Because if I am not identifying your pain point and what you need, then I'm missing the boat.
So I want to go back to what we were talking about. So you used that interesting word quite a few times, something with flexing.
Style flexing.
Style flexing. Can we go a little deeper into that? What does it mean, style flexing? And maybe some tips how to style flex. I like the word style flex. I have no idea what it is.
Well, think of the style that you have of deliverance. Oh, that's right. Okay, that's right. That's exactly right. The style that you have. That's right, girl. You deliver according to your style. But when you see that your style is missing the audience for one reason or another, like if you had nobody in the chat, or nobody's raising your hand, or nobody's doing Q&A, then you have to change that style to something that's more interesting to the audience at hand. So that's what style flex means. And it means that you have to come prepared with a bunch of different skills so that you can draw from another and draw from another and draw from another when you need to. And it's usually spur of the moment. This is what television taught me. Mm-hmm. Being on a television show, when you have only 3 minutes to deliver who you are and what your brand is all about. And we're always selling. Everybody's always selling. Mm-hmm. You are selling yourself even now, Christina. You may not realize it, but you are selling yourself by your questions and sounding so intelligent and laughing. See, now that's very natural. And I recommend everybody be very natural. I was training a client on Wall Street, down at Citibank, big bank. And he said to me, he was terrified. He didn't want to speak at all. And he said to me, so Dr. Gilda, is it necessary for me to raise my hand or put my hand in my pocket or do this or that when I say this word or that word? I said, absolutely not. In the olden times, this is the way people taught others how to speak. Yeah. Not my people at all. My people are very natural. When you held up your arm and that's flexing. Yes, and it takes that amount of courage and guts to be able to say, I want to do this. I want to do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I'm a human being. Just remember, this is work-life balance. We are human beings. And whether you're having an issue in the boardroom or the bedroom, it is going to show. Sorry. I mean, that's the way it is. We are not actors. Thank the Lord. I mean, I don't want anybody reading from a script that I'm working with. We are not actors. We are human beings identifying other human beings' needs and trying to fulfill those needs as best we can. That's from the pulpit that I'm at. Now, one of the examples that I have for boardroom to bedroom is one, I was working with 2 partners, and one was cheating on the other partner. I'm talking in business. Yeah. So this is not love relationship. One was cheating on his partner, and the other one was not too trustworthy. So we had 2 cheating people. Do you think that this is any different from people in personal relationships who are cheating on one another? It is not. The same feelings exist. Trust is extremely important to every single interpersonal relationship we have. If we do not have trust, then we have nothing. So I was called in to deal with these 2 partners, and they of course weren't getting along, and they had no trust for each other. And I had to work with each one separately to identify with him, these are 2 men, with him, what was really going on in his life and how to circumvent that, to come across in a more honest way with his partner. Well, once I worked with one, then I worked with the other, and then I brought them both together. They had a thriving business after that. Whereas before then, the bottom line was faltering. Now, traditionally, business consultants are called in to find out what is wrong with the business. I have found that it's usually nothing wrong with the business, but there's something terribly wrong with the people in the business. And that's why I had to do my edu training so that people understood that they are the people who comprise that business. And if you cannot be trusted in that business, forget about it. One of my clients recently said he would never do business after we were together for quite a while, and he was getting coached by me. And I have a lot of clients that I coach weekly or sometimes twice a week. And since everything's online, it's very, very simple to do. But he finally got it. And he said he will never, ever do business with somebody who is cheating on his wife. Now, a lot of people figure, well, the person cheats on his wife. What does that have to do with me? I don't care. I don't have anything to worry about. But that you do care. You must care. You have to find out who that person really is.
So I guess in business partnerships, the relationships are very close and important, but often we are in partnership. Well, I'm using this word loosely, like right now, with many people who we have no control over how they come and go. How does this theory apply to let's say to you in a relationship with other people in your team? Because whether you have control or not, like just a simple example, I have people on my team right now who are very who don't see eye to eye, who have very opposing views and values in a topic completely unrelated to business, but that obviously affects the business. And they maybe in their case, they do have control of working or not working with each other, but sometimes we don't. How do you go about that then?
I love that question, because these days with politics, people are on this side and other people are on that side. And don't think for a moment it doesn't permeate into the bottom line, because it always does. Well, what the leader must do is to, once again, not say, okay, you guys just get along and I don't care. And in the olden days, probably that's how a lot of coaches and trainers thought. That's not the way I work. I then see that people are having diverse feelings about certain topics. And sometimes these topics are very hot-headed and these people are very hot-headed. What my job is to do is to understand where A is coming from, then understand where B is coming from. And then you have to see how you can provide a way of getting these people to identify common ground together. Now that's very, very important, because first of all, nobody can make somebody get along. Nobody can legislate somebody to get along. Nobody can legislate. I mean, we have all these laws in so many countries that say that sexual harassment, for example, or diversity, for example, or something. How do you legislate somebody to love thy neighbor? You can't. But what I do is get people to stand in the boots of the other people and see what that is like. For example, I had a big conference I was called into, and they were mostly men. And they're sitting at this conference table and they're saying, well, you know what? My boss doesn't give me promotions and raises the way I feel I deserve. Every single guy, this was middle management, every single guy was complaining about this. So I thought, well, here I have my presentation prepared, but television has taught me you can have anything prepared. It goes out the window when the needs in front of me tell me otherwise. So I said to them, okay, let's have all your grievances on the table. and they were complaining about the boss. He hasn't given us raises. He hasn't given us promotions. And how long are we supposed to be here? Blah, 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 blah. And I said, have you asked the boss when you can get a raise, when you can get a promotion? And you know what these guys said to me? He should know. And I said, well, he doesn't have a crystal ball. You're assuming that he knows, and he doesn't. And from that, I wrote my first book, Don't Bet on the Prince. Now, it was meant to, it was meant for us to understand that one prince does not dictate to you everything that you have to do. And of course, I used it because I too style flex. I used it as a woman's book to how to be better equipped to handle relationships with a man. Don't bet on the prince. And I thought that was a pretty good way of getting people to understand that the subtitle was, don't bet on the prince, how to have the man you want by betting on yourself. And the most important part of that was betting on yourself. This is very crucial. You have got to bet on you. You have to be, and this comes from, I'm giving you like a whole couple of courses all at once. You have to be able to say, I am Dr. Gilda. If I come across with I'm Dr. Gilda, with a lowercase I rather than a capital I, then I'm inviting you to treat me poorly, because lowercase i's attract other lowercase i's. And for all the people who say, I can't get the right job, I can't get the right person to love me, I can't get the right career, all of this, I take the person, take a magnifying glass and say, are you walking around with a capital I? And they say, what? I say, are you walking around with a capital I? And I have done this for audiences. And all of a sudden I say capital I, and you see the entire audience levitate, because this is what it's all about. You and you alone bet on yourself to project your best self forward. And that's up to you. And that's why I wrote that book, Amplify Your Media Presence, Amplify Your Brand, because it's all about us. It's not about them. However, in terms of whether you're getting your point across, then it's all about them.
So I want to come back to betting on yourself, but before that, I have to make a step back, and because we were talking about conflicts, say in environments where you don't get to choose to leave or to choose to change your partner. So we've now experienced that there are sometimes conflicts which are not easy to resolve, or let's say, philosophically speaking, I imagine everything is resolvable. But let's say if we take the same pandemic and the reaction to pandemic, masks, no masks, vaccines, no vaccines. If you take politics, a lot of the times there is no hope that somebody is going to change their point of view. And sometimes that's not even the goal, to change their point of view.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
It is not your job to change anybody. It is your job to get either an action or a reaction from them. And I tell every audience I speak to, if you leave this situation in the same condition that you came to me in, then I haven't done my job. My job in the end, and this is all in the Amplify book, my job is to get people to identify what they need to grow better. And my job is to shake that coconut tree and to have some coconuts hit us on the head and say, oh my goodness, and have our epiphanies, so that we can then say, oh, wow, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And now I'm starting to see things as I think they ought to be. That's growth. That's beautiful. But we're not going to do that if we segregate business and personal. We are not going to have that. And therefore, bedroom to boardroom is the only technology that can possibly exist. Looking at us as whole people, we have been through so much with this pandemic. And we've really dug into finding out who we are, how we can best let people know how they can grow. And of course, we always want bottom line. Somebody asked me, what is the bottom line on this? And bottom line is, how is everything working out financially?
Yeah.
And a business is in business to make money, to show a profit. And if you have all this garbage going on in between that, well, then that's not going to happen.
So coming back to betting on yourself, and I do not know, maybe this question is a little bit out of the topic, but I just can't help asking it, because you say we're whole people and we are talking about boardroom and bedroom. I know in psychology there's this theory of social roles, and that theory says that we usually like to, let's say, put forward the social roles which are socially more valuable. So let's say if I'm a mother and an entrepreneur, then society values entrepreneurs above mothers, unfortunately. So when I go out, let's say on a party, if people ask me who you are, I would normally say I'm a co-founder of Mindvalley rather than I'm mother of 2 children. I'm just bringing a very simple example of how we pick roles, or how we show forward the roles which are more valuable. Yet what you're talking about essentially is that you have to actually grab along the other social role, which maybe you used to deprioritizing, and take it along to work with you, because work is, well, I'm in my bedroom, to be honest. So my work, my other social roles are also somewhere around here in the corners. So while it is technically quite possible, I can show up in the office and say that, hey, while I'm a co-founder, but I'm also I have other social roles which are important. For women, of course, being a woman is another social role which is always in conflict with our social roles. For example, a role of a leader, because what we expect from women is very different from what we expect from leaders. And then when we have to choose, do I come across as a woman or do I come across as a leader, we usually end up with a nasty conflict on the hands. So how do you reconcile all of that within you? Because forget the world, you have to be at peace with all of that.
I couldn't have said it better. You have to be at peace with all of that. And it starts with capitalizing your I. And if you don't know who you are and what is essential for you to project to other people, then you're telling them, I'm mixed up a little bit, and they are going to look upon you as being mixed up too. And if you're looking to get hired, they're not going to want to hire you. I remember years ago, I was looking for somebody to do a brochure for me. And some woman came up, I was at a women's meeting, and a woman came up to me, she said, oh, I could do the brochure, I'm a writer. I said, okay, fine, let me know about what kinds of things you write about, and I'd like to see some samples. She said, okay, and then she proceeded to shake my hand. And this is what I got. This limp fish handshake. I did not hire her. That told me everything. Body language counts 55% of all the interpersonal communication that we have. 55% is very much going to determine whether or not I am going to hire somebody or not. 55% body language. And for all those people out there who think, oh, all I have to do is memorize this speech and deliver this speech, the words count only 7%. Sorry, guys. We are all exciting people. And I'm not supposed to say that in a business setting, but we are all exciting people. And I don't want anybody to bury their excitement under a pile of rubble, thinking that, oh, well, I have to act this way or that way. Stop acting. When women come to me and they say, well, should I play hard to get? I keep saying, I don't want anybody playing. I want you to be honest and natural. I want love relationships to flourish. I want business relationships to flourish. It's all about our relationships. And if we are not confident in who we are and what we bring to the table, then we will not have this flourish.
But what if what you are is not the excitable and forceful
Not
kind of human
excitable,
being?
exciting, not excitable, exciting. Yeah, well, that's fine too. Not everybody starts out as being effervescent, but then you hire a coach. And then what I do as a coach is I pull out, I don't manufacture, well, you have to do this and you have to act like this. I don't manufacture that. I pull out all the stuff that's inside you that we can use to get to that bottom line and get you really successful.
So how do you find which of your quirks are your strengths, actually?
Well, that's a good question, because many times quirks can be strengths, but we have to identify them. You might need some help with a coach. I mean, if you can't do it yourself, fine. I recommend read this book, Amplify Your Media Presence, Amplify Your Brand, first, because I wrote it for just these questions. But there are lots of unanswered questions depending upon who is out there and who has this need as opposed to that need. And that's okay. We're all beautiful. And the moment we forget that is the moment we get into these very strict rules, which impede our ability to communicate who we really naturally are. Look, here's a Gildagram for you. People do business with people they like. People like themselves. So if you're going after that heavy hitter, that person who you know can give you that job, you better identify what his personality aspects are. And you pull from your personality, not to be phony, but you pull from your identifiable personality aspects that can really get that person to hear you and see you and want more of you. And that's another one of my many things. You always leave somebody hungry.
To wind up, I want to ask Dr. Gilda, so if people want to go deeper, because obviously you have such a wealth of knowledge and we've just touched a little bit here, a little bit there, how can they work with you? You've mentioned the book several times. I suppose it's out already. Just give some pointers where to go, how to dig deeper, how to work with you closer.
Well, it's very simple. My email address is drgilda@drgilda.com, drgilda@drgilda.com. I'd love to hear from you, and the questions and the answers that I couldn't respond to, please send them to me. I would love to hear that. And then I can tell you how to go about all of this. I have thrown so much information at you. If you were looking for just a how to do the best business you can, that's a whole other course. I don't give that. If you're looking for how to find love forever and ever and ever, that's a whole different course. I don't do that. I do believe we are there for the picking. We are there in our best, most powerful self because we've done the meditation and because we've done all the insightful things that we needed to do. And then we just stand there and put out what we want and act ourselves. And it's beautiful when you see all the people who glom to you, who come to you, who want what you are offering. It's beautiful. I've done it in my own life. I've had some hardships too. I've done it in my own life. This stuff really works.
Thank you so much. Traditionally, I want to ask people who are right now online to leave a heart in the chat. For those who are watching it in recording, you can leave a heart under the video for my wonderful guest. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us. And I can feel that there is so much where we could go deeper and
oh yes, I mean, this is only the very, very beginning. I can talk about this for 10 sessions. I mean, that's my program is very often is 10 sessions and more. So God bless all of you. Thank you for attending. And I wish you so much great, wonderful luck. But beyond the luck, capitalize that I, because you're worth it.
That's a great parting tip. Capitalize the I. Thank you guys, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much once again for joining and for your wonderful company and for your wonderful energy. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Annie, behind the scenes, for supporting us. And
God bless you all. Thank you so much. And prayers for Ukraine, what is happening there.
Thank you so much, everyone, and see you in a week, hopefully. Bye-bye.
Bye.